So hey everyone, congratulations on making it to Friday. I assume you've made it if you're here, if you're watching. And then, how's it going, Carl? You and
It's going.
your wizardry of beer office.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where all the magic starts.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to talk about that all stuff. How's your crypto life been doing? Like,
It's been quieter. Like I feel like it's been for everybody, but I mean, we've been through multiple cycles now, so we kind of,
uh huh.
we're used to people's interest level going through the roof, and then everyone thinking everything's going to go to zero and everything's a scam, and you just try to tune that all out. And I don't know. I still enjoy it. I'm having fun. I'm still learning new stuff all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I still believe it's the future.
Yeah, that's a great perspective to be at in this whole thing. Um, it is kind of funny when you see the perspectives of people change with each new cycle coming out, and it is kind of funny how like you should like theoretically I think you should be able to just figure out the tech, figure out that this is cool, and then you just kind of keep learning from there. But it seems like people don't know people don't know anything until they hit a bull market and a bear market. I don't know why. Like people like kind of grasp the fundamentals a little bit, but they must like ignore them sort of until the bear market hits, and then they're like they either leave or they're like, oh, I'm gonna re-examine the fundamentals that I already kind of knew, but like I didn't really pay too much close attention to. It's kind of wild for me. I just got in somewhere. I guess started talking about crypto. I think February of 2013 was like my first public tweet where I was talking about Bitcoin. So I'm coming up on 10 years here. It like I never really cared about the cycles. I never my impact didn't the cycles didn't really change my perception at all. And yeah.
So I think what you said is kind of true. I think everyone has to go through a bull, a bear, and then another bull before they start getting motivated. Because the bear markets, especially, I say
Hmm.
especially this last one, even though in a percentage standpoint, it's actually less of a drop than say post Mount Gox or the what was it 2015, 16. But I think once the bull market comes back, then people start getting interested. Okay, this thing didn't go away, and it just keeps getting bigger, and more people keep coming into it. Maybe it's something I should sit down, and that's kind of what I went through. I bought my first Bitcoins in 2013 and sold them not far after that. Once I made some money, and was like, "Oh, that was cool. That was fun." Then everything fell apart, and then it all came roaring back. And it's like maybe I should sit down and actually learn what the
Hmm.
fundamentals are, how this technology works, and then once you start down that road, the light bulbs just start clicking, and you start realizing what's actually possible as this gets
Hmm.
developed and starts picking up more users. Uh, and once you realize what the potential is, then it's like I guess you hit a point where you're like all in. You start diving into all the different things that are being built out there, and yeah, it's been fun. And like I said, there's new stuff being built all the time and new stuff to learn.
Yeah.
It's
It's
exciting.
it's for sure. And it's one of those things where like just out of I got into crypto because I was like a gold bug and I was a freedom guy, still am a freedom guy, and wanted to use non-government money just because we hear about how the Federal Reserve is so terrible and stuff, and that just kind of got me in it. And I was in sort of the freedom, political, whatever movement professionally, and then I sort of retired in at the end of 2015 to go into crypto. And as I saw, like, oh, this is an exciting thing that's like adjacent to this. And since then, first off, because it's so radically new and cool and awesome, I can't ever see myself. I would be so sad if I left. Like if I did other things, like even if I did something awesome, like I love teaching martial arts, I would love to just do that for a living, but just to not be in that anymore. And especially each cycle, it's not just, oh, things are getting a little better and more advanced. There's something new, mind blowing that just drops into my lap. And I'm just like, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that either. I guess I got to stick around to see what else comes out. And eventually, I think in like 10, 15 years, it'll calm down to where it's just like the industry, just part of the way we do life. And it won't be like, but right now it's almost like it's one of the most interesting things from a freedom perspective happening in the entire planet. At the same time, it's almost like a drug of excitement where you're just new awesome possibilities hitting you all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a new age gold rush, but even bigger, because it's not just getting excited when you dig the same rock out of the ground. You find a new place where these rocks are buried in the ground. It's something new and exciting that does something and adds utility and value to something that somebody might be trying to do. I mean, it's freedom of commerce. The possibilities are endless. We're just like, I keep reminding people, like, we are so early on this. And like I said before, the potential for what the entire crypto space can deliver and the amount of industries it can disrupt very quickly it's exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So we got a few people listening right now. It's probably a good time to roll the intro thing and officially give this thing a start. All right, here we go, guys.
Sweet.
Go. So, hey everyone, officially happy Friday now. I'm joined by the one and only Carl Soderberg of Ebenezer. How's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Joel.
Yeah, no problem. Before we get into the show stuff, you mind telling folks what you do? Because I think you're one of the more interesting guests I've had on for that very purpose.
Well, I appreciate that, because I'm definitely one of the less technical guests you've had on. But so I'm Carl. I'm one of the co-founders, brewers of Ebenezer Brewing Company here in southern New Hampshire. We're based out of Merrimack. We're going on 9 years operating in the state. We self-distribute across the entire state. If you're in New Hampshire, you're probably very familiar with our products. Yeah, really just enjoy being a small business owner and a crypto enthusiast for many years now.
And you're one of the, not only one of the businesses that takes crypto in the area, but also that's kind of like enthusiastic about it. It isn't just, oh, well, some of our customers demanded this and we think it's pretty cool, so we'll do it. It seems like you're kind of all in, like what we could call almost a crypto business, you know?
Yeah, I look forward to the day when, I mean, the enthusiasm is obviously dropped, but I try to stay enthusiastic. I see it as a way, I mean, you know, crypto can be intimidating, and I feel like spending $6 on a beer is probably the easy way to kind of ease somebody into it and get them used to, this is how a crypto transaction works. This is how easy it is. By the way, the fees were way less. And I mean, it's a nice value proposition, because people, vast majority of people, they get introduced to crypto through a news story, and it's like, you can just pay for your $6 beer. It didn't have to run through a bank. So I try to remain enthusiastic, and the enthusiasm will come back. So I think having the systems in place so that when that enthusiasm comes back and people want to spend Dogecoin again, we're primed and ready to accept those payments. Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting how it's starting to become so much more mainstream, and we'll talk about that for like the last bit of the news story stuff about the great adoption, like building of this bear cycle, which I think is some really cool stuff coming up. But first we have to get into the gossip, because that's what we do here sometimes. So first off, Genesis creditors file securities lawsuit against Barry Silbert and Digital Currency Group. So have you kept up with this whole Genesis saga over the last few months?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the creditors are very upset for sure.
I could imagine. I mean, it's been like one domino. I mean, 2022 was just one domino after the other, and a popular word around the crypto sphere has been contagion, and how is this going to pour into the next thing? And it's really just a byproduct of everything being over leveraged. And I think it was, it took a strong bear market to expose all of it. And now everyone's grabbing for the money that they have lent out. And I still think it's going to be a while before any of this is sorted out. But even people who are like, I want to get exposure to crypto, but I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do self-custody. So maybe I'll buy this GBTC thing. And I'm like, do you understand how that works? Like, and
the answer is no.
It's all,
I don't.
Yeah, no. Well, it's the same people who ask me, should I buy sheep? I'm like, what does it do and how does it work? Like, what is, so I think that's the level of understanding in this market. People still see this as like an investment thing, as a way of generating more dollars. And that's really not I think when you study crypto long enough, you realize that that's not the point. The point is to go in and then you're not so much investing as you are exiting the dollar.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
Increasingly, you're not so much exiting the dollar as you are exiting the fiat system, but then increasingly with like Web3 and DeFi and stuff like that, and NFTs and all that, you're exiting all the systems. And that's the part where it gets really exciting. But so, yeah, people like you try to get involved with trying to earn some yield or whatever, which we're going to come full circle on this point. But they get, getting to a centralized institution, and all of this, like crypto's never been stronger in my view, but all the centralized institutions are taking a huge beating. And Digital Currency Group was one of the ones that was the most squeaky clean, respectable suit kind of wearing of them all, of all these types of things, at least to the public perception. And they're starting to get some, obviously the Genesis thing is like a big, kind of like the first domino. But as we can see here, they're really not doing super well. So DCG companies have laid off over 500 employees as the contagion spreads. And they exchanged LunoFi with 330 employees. And funny enough, in all this stuff, this is a name I did not expect to see in that thing. Roger Ver, old buddy Roger Ver, Genesis is suing him for $20 million over unsettled crypto options trades. Now, did you hear anything about this at all?
I did it briefly, I think last week, but I'm surprised. But again, it goes back to just over leverage and having your unit of account be the dollar.
Yeah,
it's messy, but I feel like this is still like there's still a lot of mess out there that needs to be shaken out before, because this is kind of this past cycle was kind of the first one where Web3 became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed a lot of people to get access to leverage that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten through a centralized institution. And then once those things started to unravel or get hacked, the whole starting with the whole Terra Luna fiasco, algorithmic stable coins. And we're still in that part of the lifespan of crypto. Like, we're still in its infancy, where a lot of these systems that are being built that are, like we said earlier, very exciting, they still have a lot of potential to break, which has kind of been my thing. Whenever I'm reading or learning about something new, it's like, okay, so how does this break? Because that's what we've seen over the past year. I don't think it's over yet. I think there's going to be a few more surprises, but the one thing I'm confident of is crypto will remain. I think that things like Genesis, DCG, FTX, like those aren't crypto. Those are centralized intermediaries that messed up managing other people's money. And I think the point of crypto is complete self-custody, autonomy financially, and being able to deploy your capital as you see fit without an intermediary. So a lot of these intermediary crypto companies, I think it's inevitable that a lot of them are going to get shaken out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think that the interesting thing, Roger Ver in particular, he's a friend of mine, and he's kind of been an OG in this whole decentralization, self-custody, all that kind of space. And it's been kind of interesting because he's been caught up in, maybe I should, talk to him directly about his side of things on this, but he's been caught up in two different kind of insolvency things. One with CoinFlex, which was a more Bitcoin Cash ecosystem based thing, where he had some sort of a similar like long position, and now Genesis, and it's kind of funny because in both cases he says, "I'm happy to pay everything that I owe." The thing is, part of our initial contractual stipulation was that you would remain solvent, and basically says that Genesis lied about their solvency. They pretended to be solvent when they weren't, and so therefore he says, according to this, I don't want to pay my stuff back. So it's kind of, this is something I'd like. I don't really care about this side of things as much. I mean, obviously, we're both more about like principles and all that kind of stuff, and not as much, the gossiping over the collapse of CeFi, which unfortunately we're doing right now. But I'm always wondering if Roger kind of understood that a lot of these things were houses of cards, and he decided to take like risky bets on them with a stipulation that would be fine if these were above board sound financial institutions, but knowing that they weren't, he was kind of profiting off of a bet that they were scummy and insolvent. That would be an interesting thing.
That would be a definitely bold move. I don't know Roger Ver that. Yeah, I don't know Ver that well, but I do. I mean, I know he's done some cringeworthy things in the past, but I still have a lot of respect for the guy because it was him, Voorhees, and Shrem that first introduced me to Bitcoin back in 2013 when they were just kids traveling around the country trying to teach boomers about this thing called Bitcoin. In 2013, they got a lot of pushback and a lot of shit at their table. And I remember giving them a few $100 to buy my first Bitcoins. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm totally getting scammed right now. But I think like through using it, you're like, all right, I kind of see what this is. And I see what the potential is as a payment network. So I give credit to Ver, and I really thank him and look up to him to a certain extent. Just for introducing me to this whole new world.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's for sure. They didn't call him Bitcoin Jesus for nothing. It is kind of funny how like the world changes so much, where this guy was like the rock star of all rock stars in the crypto world, and then his sort of standing changed to be the controversial adversarial person in a Bcasher or whatever, and a god to that world.
That was crazy.
But then the rest, and then now it's even with that, it's just like sort of like faded away a little bit, and now there's like talk of insolvency and like getting wrecked and stuff, and which who knows? I mean, he says he has the money, he says he can pay it back. He's a very honest guy. I think that if he didn't have it, he would just not say anything, right? But it's kind of funny the way I don't think my perspective on him in particular. I don't think he's really changed very much over the years. It's just that the crypto space has morphed around him to where when it was just Bitcoin, it was just this, it was easy to be like, this is a very strong ideological, very kind of Ian Freeman-esque sort of a figure. And, that's, hero to the movement. And then when the movement grows and you have to have diverging visions, now it's hero to some, villain to others. And then when it grows to such an extent where now even someone like him is, and I don't want to, it sounds mean by saying this, but I mean only with the utmost respect. He's less relevant than ever because the space has grown so big that it doesn't need a Bitcoin Jesus to kind of like push it forward. It's just like, it's doing so well that just like, that whole, Ninja Turtles meme with like Splinter holding like the four little turtles. And then when they're big and he's old, they're just like helping him along. It's like, it's got that whole sentiment, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, who's the Jesus of the past cycle? Would it probably be Sailor? I mean,
yeah.
This goes all the way back to Satoshi Nakamoto staying completely anonymous, because I think the whole point of Bitcoin and what makes it such a part of what makes it so revolutionary is there is no one in charge. There is no, key figurehead that everyone looks to kind of give everyone the pulse of Bitcoin. I mean, you can't say that about really any of the other networks for the most part. So, I mean, I think it's inevitable that, within the next cycle, there's going to be another Bitcoin Jesus that everyone's going to look up to and believe when they put on laser eyes and everything else. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
It was a wild cycle. When you brought up Bcash, I'm reminded of the blockchain war, or the block size wars and the split. And I mean, yeah, we haven't had a Bitcoin holder airdrop in who knows how long, but I remember that. And it was like a huge deal. And I remember sitting in front of my computer and watching the two hash rates side by side, being like, all right, longest chain. Like it was a pure test of one of Satoshi's, I guess, original theories in the white paper of the honest chain, the longest chain, the one that has the most work behind it, will be the prevailing chain. And here we are. And it's crazy how much has changed since, when was that? Yeah. 2017 or 18? Like, how much has changed with the whole narrative of, because it was Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin SV. And then you have all these Web3 platforms and L2s. And so, I mean, Bitcoin Cash is very easy to use and it's fast. And I mean, that's great, but I couldn't imagine like trying to run a node, but I guess no one's even using that network right now, right?
Yeah. And that's the other thing is, like, according to a lot of metrics, Bitcoin Cash has done really well. According to a lot, it's done not very well. So, like, according to usability, there's over 10,000 merchants on the merchant map. Of course, maybe not all those things were super like current, but then St. Kitts has it as a legal tender, and then I believe there's a new startup that lets you spend it at like 200 million locations in India. I interviewed the guy behind that too, and there's a bunch of cool people doing cool stuff. On the other hand, obviously the price isn't where it could be relative to the others, and the transaction volumes are pretty low. They've never really got off the ground, and so it's kind of interesting how like Litecoin has kind of gotten to 90, 100,000 transactions a day. So Litecoin's, of all the digital cash variants, Litecoin seems to be doing the best in terms of pure transaction volume. And if you combine them all together, it's about a little bit more than Bitcoin's on chain. If you combine the Litecoin, the Dash, the Bitcoin Cash, Monero even, and Zcash, then it's all like, it's kind of funny how like that scaling went, but like the market is in the middle of like deciding kind of like which way to go for like segmenting for payments, for example.
Yeah, I think we're going to be in that middle for a very long time. I mean, it goes back to users. Everything, like what we're seeing right now, this competition between different, I mean, a lot of people call it toxicity or whatever else. My chain is...
There are toxic elements, but there's genuine, honest, like, competitiveness of, like, we're trying to do better than our competition. And then there's also, like, dumping on the competition, and those are very different things.
No, I totally agree, but I think it's all part of the process. Like, eventually this is all going to get shaken out. The bad chains, and I'm not going to say what is good or what is bad. It's something you actually put to me very well, was the free market is always right. We may not like the answer, but the free market is always right. And that's 100% true. And that's what we're watching now. And the key is not going to be the USD price pair that determines what projects or what networks will sustain. That's going to be part of it, but it's really going to be users. Who's using the networks? So like the networks that have the builders, people running a strong community running nodes independently, and people actually using the network for whatever commerce they want to do, whether it's buying a beer or an NFT or using DeFi to try to earn some yield on their savings. It's really going to come down to users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. And which kind of reminds me of this next one coming up here, which has been one of the more fascinating things I've kind of noticed that I did not expect to shake out this way. But when you think about it, it's pretty obvious. But anyway, amid crypto winter, central banks rethink in-house digital currencies. In recent months, 4 countries that had previously initiated major CBDC pilot programs have scrapped their adoption plans altogether. Now that's the libertarian, 1984 money, fever dream of this is the worst thing. It seems to be, it seems a little gecko and not a dragon so far, the way the CBDC stuff has turned out. And I think it's really fascinating. I'd like to know your thoughts on it before I try to monopolize the conversation again.
CBDCs do have the potential to be very dangerous to a free society. You can look at China as an example of that. I think they're still probably going full steam ahead with CBDCs. And I think, honestly, CBDCs are probably inevitable in the United States as well. So a few months ago, I attended the New Hampshire Bankers Association's cryptocurrency conference that they had put together in the wake of New Hampshire's cryptocurrency legislation that they passed this year, trying to educate bankers on what this industry is and what the networks are and everything else. And there was a very long, very good presentation from the American Bankers Association in DC about CBDCs. And I think it's inevitable, but I think it sounds like what's going to end up happening is a wholesale model. So right now, the way that dollars are moved, dollars are already digital. It's just that the digital networks they move on are antiquated and slow. And anyone who's used ACH or SWIFT can attest to that. So it's the same thing.
Should
The Federal
sue
Reserve
Swift over false advertising from their name.
Well, it was it, yeah. Banks move large amounts of money amongst themselves that we never see, and they move large amounts of money to and from the Federal Reserve, and that it's all being done on these antiquated systems. So I think it makes sense to make that more of a blockchain-based system. The scary model is a direct model. So they call that a wholesale model, where just money that it's not consumer-facing being moved around can be done faster, cheaper, but a direct model would imply that everybody has a bank account with the Federal Reserve, and that basically nullifies the value proposition of local banks. 90% of what local banks do. If all of your deposits in your account are at the Federal Reserve and they control what you can and can't spend money on, that's the scary model. And I think that's what China is playing around with now. I believe they're testing their CBDC right now in one of their provinces. So I think CBDCs are inevitable because blockchain is a perfect solution for what banks do. The scary part is if the government decides, why don't we just cut out the middleman and we'll just everyone will have their account with the Federal Reserve. We'll know everything that everyone spends their money on. So I do know that the American Bankers Association is fighting for the former, the wholesale model, because they represent the bankers, and banks, everything from community banks all the way up to Bank of America, are not interested in seeing the Federal Reserve become the one bank that everyone has to bank with. So I understand that people are concerned, and there totally is a 1984 storyline that could go down. But I don't think that's going to happen in the United States. So, yeah. CBDCs are a fascinating topic.
What I think is fascinating, particularly about the CBDC, the way it's played out, is I feel like there's this acknowledgement that the payment rails that we well, hopefully not we, but you know what I'm saying, the rest of the world uses are antiquated, need updating, and that also crypto is the future, and governments kind of know it, so they want to be in on it. However, it's kind of funny, but this big, grandiose vision for central bank digital currencies has been downgraded with each passing year that reality sets in. Where first they're we're going to create a digital dollar and all this kind of stuff, and they're trying to figure out we're going to create our own blockchain, our own network, run everything, and digital, all this kind of stuff. And I think over time, first off, they realize wow, we got the power we did, our central bank, by co-opting a whole bunch of smaller players like banks and payment industries. And if we just do something new, they all have to agree and get along, or they're going to throw a fit and they're going to call their bought and paid congressmen and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to be a disaster. So they're like, well, we got to tread carefully with that. And that's like, for example, Libra or DM, whatever Facebook was trying to do, their stablecoin project just didn't work out because of that, because all these different players were fighting over it. And so then they were like, what I have a feeling that their next shot is, okay, we have stable coins on Ethereum already, and on Polygon, and on AVAX and Tron, and all these other places. They already exist. A lot of them are regulated. USDC, in particular, censors certain transactions, like certain addresses it cannot be sent to. Is built right into the smart contract. Like the OFAC blacklist and stuff, you can't send USDC there. And so they're like, well, we're just going to do our own thing. There's going to be a Fed coin, right? We're going to do Fed coin, or, USD on Ethereum, not even USDC. We're going to do our own thing and just put it on all these networks. And just because we can't innovate like the crypto world has. And my opinion is they're going to settle on even less than that, because it's still like, well, who gets to do what? I think they're just going to be like, look, we're going to regulate banks who issue their own stable coins, like USDC is one, and Tether is, another, and all these kinds of things. We're just going to regulate that and just make sure that in order to be legally compliant, they have to back one for one with US dollars. And they also have to specifically have these like programmed in limitations of how they can be sent, so that you don't use them as cash, so that they're not private, and so that they're restricted in what you can use them for. And so I think that that's what they're just going to settle for, is just kind of like regulating existing stable coins and just being like, all right, there we go.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way this is going to play out. I mean, it makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
You already have these banking institutions that are creating stable coins. It makes more sense just to provide clear legislation, so you avoid things like the Terra Luna collapse, where an algorithm is managing the value of the stable coin via the destruction or minting of another coin. It's like, we now know that model is pretty fragile. So again, we're still in the infancy of the crypto, what the crypto life cycle will be. And I think it'll outlive all of us, but there's still going to be hard lessons to learn down the road. And I think governments in general are not big at taking risks. So I would totally see them just rather regulate than trying to build an entire network and run it. Because say that they do develop their own blockchain and decide to run their own nodes and do this CBDC 1984 style, like, what happens when an attack vector is exploited that no one thought of before? That's no shit time.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think the government wants to get into that business.
Yeah, that's the thing that.
But I do think blockchain is the next step in how financial systems are going to work. It's going to be the foundation of how financial systems work, and the different features that dictate what currency, like one network or one currency is better than another, is going to come down to, it could be any number of factors, but that's kind of the process we're going through now. Do people care about speed? Do they care about centralization versus decentralization? Do they care about immutability? Do they care about privacy? Which I know is the next topic we're getting into. So,
yeah, pretty much. So this is kind of funny. Well, starting off something slightly different. NFT Watch. Trump digital trading cards see 88% increase in floor price in the past 24 hours following new plans to return to Twitter. So like Donald himself is trying to come back to Twitter, and just it's the whole Doge mania all over again in this case, where like Elon tweets a reference and people somehow extrapolate that to mean the coin Dogecoin that's been here all along is all of a sudden something real is going to happen. But it ended up being just, Doge has always been Doge. It's always been fun. It's always been such wow. And it continued to be wow, but with lots of speculative money. And now there's less speculative money, but it's still wow. But so the Trump digital trading card things, like, honestly, they sold out almost instantly. I was going to buy one.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
I'm not a fan of Mr. Trump. Sorry. But I'm not a fan of his.
I mean, these things look ridiculous, man.
Yeah, and they look like absolute crap. Like, but I had a feeling that because of what they were, because they represented like a unique, limited piece of the overall shit show that follows this man around, I knew that would be valuable. So I wanted to buy it, but then they sold out, and I didn't want to pay like the incredibly inflated. Like, I would have paid $100, but more than that, no. And now it's just like all over the place. And whoever
bought price is almost half an ether right now.
That's yes, whoever. I mean, how much is that? It's like a few grand, right?
Half ETH. What's ETH trading at right now? Like 1,500, so like $750, give or take. $800.
Yeah, so it's like you 8x your investment just by like buying this. Like, so if you bought like 10 of these things, you spend $1,000, you'd be up to like $8,000, and you got a little vacation out of it and stuff too. It's pretty crazy. But like, also the way Ethereum and these kinds of, and this has been a big criticism of mine, right? The way ETH and a lot of these smart contract kind of things work in the DeFi and NFT space, zero privacy. Everyone can see who owns what they paid for everything, just like, and because it doesn't matter yet, because no one cares, not many people have gotten harmed because of this, but it is a real problem. However, thanks to a fun little interview I did the other day, I put this one out. Yes, I am using my own tweet as a news item here. We need Railgun, because otherwise everyone would know you bought that Trump NFT. And so to explain, Railgun is a smart contract which offers zero knowledge proof based privacy. And so basically, if you use a Railgun supporting wallet, then when everything you do is just combined with all the other Railgun users, so then they'll say someone who uses Railgun bought a Trump NFT, but they don't know exactly who it was. And then you could send it to another person who also is a Railgun, and it'd be moving around in Railgun, but it would be like, you wouldn't tell. So basically, unfortunately, that means it's more expensive because it's like a smart contract, right? So if like an ETH transaction's like a few bucks today, it'd be like $20 to $40 to get like a Railgun ETH transaction, right? Which is kind of nasty, but it's, you get like Zcash level privacy out of it, right? And if you do it on Polygon, where you basically don't have fees because they're so low, then it would be a few cents sending like private Polygon NFT, which these are on Polygon. But I just think that that's like the next evolution of the crypto space now, is now that we've gotten into this whole DeFi NFT, Web 4, Web 8, whatever the hell it is, and now we're starting to like have the waves of privacy, and especially something super usable like Railgun, where you don't even have to like mess with it or do a special button. You just use this wallet and it works. And that's going to be kind of interesting. So I don't know your hot take on that. I kind of rambled a little bit.
I don't know if I really have a hot take, but I do think privacy is, think of all the features that a given network or cryptocurrency can have. And it is interesting that Railgun does it in a smart contract platform and not on a new network. They're using, I believe, ZK Snarks, like on the, how many networks are they on? Ethereum, BSC. But I think as
Polygon, as a few others.
Well, as hackers and scammers get more sophisticated and find more attack vectors, people are going to become more interested in privacy. As governments that want to put their thumb on crypto, so because networks like Ethereum are so easy to track. For your average newcomer to crypto, they look at the string of alphanumeric characters and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally anonymous." But it's like the moment someone can attach your name to that, that's it. Like, I can see everything that you do. And I guarantee you the governments around the world have tracking software that can put all the pieces together. So, depending on where you live and what your use case is, I think more and more over time, privacy is going to become as big of a deal as it is in the real world life. I mean, we don't want people knowing, like pulling up a website on Visa's, like if Visa's ledger was available and publicly browsable on the internet, I don't think anyone would feel comfortable with being able to pull up Joel and see your bank account and see everything that goes in and everything that comes out. It's just, we haven't gotten to the point yet where the average user, because I mean, this space grows exponentially every cycle. So, as newcomers come in, they see the alphanumeric characters, they think, yeah, no one knows who that is. And it's like, but they do. They totally do. Especially the people
in
who
DeFi
have been here.
NFTs.
Yes. So it's a huge value prop. I think privacy is going to be one of those characteristics that defines the networks that attract users versus the networks that don't. So, I mean, all these tools like Railgun, I'm excited to see how it gets built out and see what people build on top of that. I mean, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it's for damn sure.
That is one of the problems with privacy tech, like in cryptography, is the amount of space that it takes up, which is what drives the fees up. And also is what, like, Zcash can be a little cumbersome to use just because of how long it takes to sync with the network, because you can't see anything. It's all being done through zero knowledge proofs.
That's kind of funny because last week I did an episode of the Zcash podcast on this channel, and we broke down what was going on with that, which is a spam attack specifically, where it's not actually that bad to sync a Zcash mobile wallet. It's just that someone found out that for privacy reasons, the number of the fees per transaction have to be kind of like the same, and so someone was sending 2 megabyte transactions, and it was just making it very difficult for mobile clients to sync. And so now they're having to introduce some differences in the fee structures. This is not a problem that other transparent blockchains would have, right? Because you could
find the attacker.
Yeah, but not only could you find the attacker, but also you could just charge different amounts via different things. But anything that stands out in a pool of things harms privacy. So everything's got to be uniform. So they're like, well, I'm just going to send a ton of data and pay the same price. And so they're kind of finding a way to limit that to make it work. But it is privacy with crypto. Making privacy work well and be like usable is probably the most challenging aspect, I would say.
Oh yeah, but I think it has the biggest upside.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of upsides and stuff, this has been something I've been really into lately, which is the arrival of trustless staking yield on just about any coin. So this is a tweet from Paul Pui, hi Paul, of Edge Wallet, where he's talking about a new feature that got implemented in Edge, which basically lets you access the THORChain savers accounts, and you can get money off of your, get return on your whatever investment. And some of these APRs are pretty decent, like 9.81% for Litecoin. That's not bad. And
I think I opened my Edge wallet the other day and I saw I can get over 3% of my Bitcoin. I'm like, that's better than the bank. And it is, and it's non-custodial.
Yeah.
Correct?
I mean, that's where the definition gets a hair split, because it's trustless. Because, like, I've done this before, by the way. You can take, let's say, the Doge pool in the Doge liquidity pool in THORChain. There's an address, the saver's address. You can just send Dogecoin from any wallet to that address, and it starts earning interest automatically. And then you send a dust amount of Dogecoin from the same address to that address, and it just auto refunds you. Like, you don't even have to do smart contract or anything. It's all like an automated, cool system. Now the thing is, obviously, like, all the money's in there. Like, it's never loaned out. It's always there, just used for liquidity. And you can get it out anytime. It works. It's automated. The only thing is, like, what if the protocol itself was hacked and they found an exploit to just drain some of these liquidity pools? That is the risk. But there's always a risk of a lot of things. I don't think it's that big of a risk. The other thing I should point out is there is a protocol associated fee to deposit and withdraw. So there's another screen in Edge that when you use Edge to deposit, it tells you how long you have to hold it there before you break even from the withdrawal and the deposit fees. So it's not like it's nothing, but like say you put some Bitcoin Cash in there, and then you have it going on for, a month. You might not quite break even yet, but by the end of the year, you will be at like 6.7% ahead or 6% ahead or whatever, for example. So that's a little addendum. The reason I bring this whole thing up, by the way, is other than just it's cool and I like talking about cool things, I think this is one of those last barriers to mass adoption that people are going to start to get. This is the reason why everyone got wrecked by FTX, by, Celsius, by Gemini or Genesis from Gemini, and then Crypto.com might be another one to go. I don't know if I'm spreading FUD, but who cares? That's why everyone got wrecked, is because everyone was chasing those sweet, sweet gains. Voyager, that's another one. And the reason those sweet, sweet gains were offered, I believe, other than just why not if you're scammy and play fast and loose, is they were trying to compete with DeFi. They were being like, people get all these yields on DeFi. We can't make that happen the same way. So CeFi overstretched itself trying to compete with DeFi and just got completely wiped out and wrecked. And so people want to make money. And this is, it's the most stupidly simple free market principle. People just want to make money. They want to do things that advance themselves. And so if you're like, why don't you use the super special uncensorable money of the future and buy your beer at Ebenezer Brewing in Merrimack, New Hampshire out of it, right? Why don't you do that? And they're like, yeah, I'll just use Apple Pay. It's like, what, but it's like, but if you have this, you can earn this interest off of this. And then, okay, maybe I'll get into it now. Maybe I'll give it a thought. And then if you have like this big, like pot of, savings from all this stuff, hopefully you started staking at the beginning of the bear market. And then when the bull's starting to come up, you're just like, wow, I have a lot of money now. What am I going to do? I'm going to go take my wife out to a nice night of a couple pints at Ebenezer Brewing in Merrimack, New Hampshire. And then they're like, oh, look, I can do that. Then it clicks. Now it's their money. So I think that this kind of trustless staking thing is like the big thing that's going to just like push people right over the edge, where they're like, I could use crypto, but it requires too much new knowledge and stuff. I'm going to stick with my old ways, where this is like, well, but what if I might learn if I can earn from learning?
I 100% agree. I discovered DeFi this past cycle, having a way to earn yield, because before it was just you hodled, right? Like that was it. Mm-hmm. It just sat there in your wallet or your cold storage. Once people realize that they can deploy their savings and earn yield on it the same way that banking institutions earn yield, those are systems that typically you had to be an accredited investor or a bank, a licensed banking institution to get access to. Now you can do that in a trust. I think that's the big thing, is trust. Trust has to be built. And watching all of these companies, they're just called crypto companies. So if this was your first cycle, you kind of roll it all together into one. You're like, well, crypto's dying again. So I think trust, and then working through the various attack vectors. We had Mango Markets. That was a big one on the Solana chain. That was a DeFi trading, lending, yield, staking protocol, and their liquidity pool got hacked. I'm not even sure if that protocol is still running, but like these are all the hard lessons that are gonna have to be learned before the mass public decides. Because right now we're all risk takers. All of us who are here who are playing in these networks, we're taking on risk that everybody else isn't willing to take because they don't trust it. And I think that's where, like what we were talking about at the beginning, having that understanding of how all this works and trying to find out how does all this break. Because if it doesn't break, the networks that don't break, the systems that don't break, and they continue to add value to people, they are inevitably going to survive and grow and thrive. And it's exciting. I think THORChain's been around a while too, though, right? It's pretty dope that it's now integrated right in the Edge wallet. Yeah,
it's like mid 2021, I think, when ChaosNet came out. And then it's like later last year, I think it was beginning of last year was mainnet. So ChaosNet had a couple of exploits, and then their treasury just paid everyone back, so everything was fine. But that was like exploits. There was a couple months it was like Ethereum was down. But this is ChaosNet. This wasn't actual public THORChain. Since THORChain's been public, it hasn't had an exploit that I can think of. There's been a couple times they had to pause the chain because some bug or because like there was some issue with a different chain, and since then, but for the most part, like as far as like people losing money on THORChain, like not from speculation and the rune price going crazy, but like from actual like losing money, like the money is leaving it hasn't happened in mainnet. So, and as far as even in ChaosNet, no, the amounts stolen were small enough that it was easy to just recompensate with the treasury. So this is wild shit, right? This is crazy stuff. This is new stuff. Fingers crossed. So I got a sad and then a happy thing to touch on our way out here. First thing is a sad one, which is, I just threw this last minute, but from LBRY, our last day in court will be 3 p.m. this Monday at the Redmond Courthouse in Concord, New Hampshire. There'll be a party/morning celebration to follow. Everyone's invited. Betting and bingo sheets are encouraged. So LBRY basically lost their lawsuit against the SEC, and now they're basically getting like the judgment. And basically, how many pounds of flesh will they lose? I try to remain optimistic. I also am pretty much ready for the whole thing to just burn to the ground, unfortunately. Government does a great job of ruining a good thing. And anyone who's watching this right now on Odyssey, as you know, understands the implications of this, because Odyssey, which I'm streaming to right now, does run on LBRY, and if LBRY goes away, they'll have to find a different like blockchain to run on. But also, rumor has it that the SEC might be going after the Odyssey company as well. So there's a possibility that within the next couple months, I might just be only streaming on YouTube, which would really not be happy. So I'm going to be there. Don't want to dox to my location, whatever, but look, you know, show up and support. They're good people. They've done a lot of good stuff. So for the last little thing to turn into a happy time, everyone who jumps on this show, I feel like I need to compensate in some way. So I have NFTs for subscriber perks and awesome things like that, like super chats. And there's a proof of work and a proof of stake element. Proof of stake element is give me money, I give you NFT. But there's also the proof of work element, which is help me out on the show, show up as a guest, and you get NFT. And so there you go, kind sir. Thank you very much for being on. I'm presenting you officially with the Digital Cash Rundown guest NFT. This is the first time in the show's history I actually sent it to you before the show, so I'm actually not late. But yes, all you have to do in the NFT when you're looking at it, there's in the description, there's instructions of how to like verify it on my Discord and Telegram as well. You can go to either one, my Discord channel or my Telegram channel, and then they should be able to just click a button to just sign a transaction to verify it. It checks if you have the NFT, and then you get in. And if at some point you don't like me anymore and you get rid of the NFT, or you just still like me but you'd rather sell it to someone, then you get booted out of the Discord and stuff because you don't have it. And whoever else has it, I don't have to deal with KYCing whoever has, like, you know, it's actual.
That's a really good use case for an NFT, man. That's a dope idea.
Yeah.
And thank you for getting me onto the Polygon network for the first time. I can't believe after all these years, I know a lot about Matic, but I've never actually touched the network. So now I have.
Yeah.
So now I need some gas so I can pay for transactions.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I don't think you need any gas to sign transactions, right? So hopefully you should be able to.
No, but if I want to sell it to somebody.
Yeah. Well, if you want, maybe you have to come on again and beg me for some Polygon gas. And I'll just like throw some.
I can just use a DeFi protocol, and I can bridge some Ethereum over to Polygon, and I mean, it's a beautiful world, man.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure. No way am I ever going to use the Railgun protocol to buy all my own NFTs and like price manipulate. You won't even be able to tell it's me. Which is actually a thing I probably could do, but like, you know me, I don't give a crap about that stuff. All right, so It's time to wrap up. Shill yourself and your product. I demand it.
I'm Carl. I brew beer at Ebenezer. I'm drinking one right now. If you're ever in New Hampshire, come by and grab a bird in the ships. New Hampshire's best beer a few years in a row. Yeah, we're always down here in Merrimack, just having fun, drinking beers, telling stories, and always happy to talk crypto. And happy to educate anybody on crypto, too.
Yes. Well,
I think education is the most important piece.
That means you'll probably be on again. So thanks again for watching, everyone. Right after this is the Dash podcast, so I would say stick around for that, but don't stick around the same link. There's a different one for that. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I will see you guys next week or in like 5 minutes.